Hello, anyone listening. This is the You've Got Sales podcast. I'm David Ravel, and today we're going to talk about creating the perfect sales CV/resume if you're in Australia or America or Canada. Creating the perfect sales resume, or I'm just going to call it CV for this, is super important. It's something that we all use at least once in our life, and it could change our life, yet nobody really knows how to create a good one. I've been a recruiter for 10 years, sales recruiter for the last almost 6 years. And 95% of sales CVs I read do not tell me anything about what I need to know about that person to see if they're relevant for the role I'm recruiting for. I've had candidates apply to roles who are super relevant, who followed up with me weeks later asking why I never got in contact with them. And it's because their CV didn't tell me anything. And if it doesn't tell me anything as a recruiter or a hiring manager, how am I supposed to invite you in for an interview? Now, a CV is never going to get you a job, but it will get you an interview. You have to do the rest from there. So it's an important document. It's your own personal piece of marketing, and it can determine whether you get that opportunity or you don't. And there are millions of people who are applying to roles every single day, spending time reading and applying to roles with a CV that is pretty rubbish. And their conversion rate to interviews will be pretty poor. So this is a 2-part podcast. The first part is going to be on how to create the perfect content. When we say content, we mean the responsibilities and achievements, the words written on the paper. And the second part is going to be the template and structure. Why should you listen to me on this? Well, because I've done the studies on it. Last year, I created CV Champion. It's on my hat here. And we're the only CV or resume writing service in the world tailored to just salespeople. And when I started it up, I didn't want to just, put my finger in the air like most things done in recruitment and hiring and resume writing and just create CVs depending on what I thought was needed to be in there. I wanted to use actual data and science and took a scientific approach. So we did 2 studies. First study was with 4,000 sales leaders across different industries, across different countries. And we asked them essentially, what are the top 100 things that you need to see on a CV for sales? And they came back with the top basically 30 points for the same things over and over. And those 30 points, the majority of them are what I would want to see as a recruiter. And they are the majority of things that you see on job adverts and postings online. So I was very confident with that study that we'd hit the right information on that. And then the second study was figuring out, okay, how much does a template and a structure visually actually impact the reader and your ability to get an interview? So we undertook a study with a US university and their visual science team. Visual science is the study of how people basically read and retain information. It's the basis for a lot of UI and UX work. And we tested hundreds of structures, hundreds of templates, everything as meta, down to the font, down to the line spacing, in terms of the font size, colors, you name it. We tested every visual and element to figure out what actually impacted it negatively or positively. So that's what these 2 episodes are going to be about, those 2 elements. So if you put these 2 elements together, you can give yourself a 100, 200, 300% chance of getting a role if you're applying online just by implementing these 2 elements. So we're going to start with the structure. Not the structure, the content. When I think about the content, what I get people to think about is just a quick story about how I met my girlfriend, or fiance even, getting married this year. We met on Hinge as a dating app, and she got on my profile and she went, he looks like a bit of a douchebag. I'm not sure about him. And then she scrolled down to the bottom and there was one photo of me in there wearing a shirt from a heavy metal band called Pantera. Now, she was a fan of Pantera, and she knew that not many people were into that type of music. So she thought, oh, that's interesting. And she thought, why not? Let's give it a go. And 4 years later, here we are. And it was that one little breadcrumb, that one piece of content that took me from a no to a maybe and a yes, let's go for it. That's exactly how the content operates in your CV. Each one of these points I'm going to go through with you now gives you a better chance of getting the job. Because when somebody has a job they're looking for, they've got a list of requirements, as we know. Now, the problem with requirements is there's a lot of requirements that are unsaid or hidden in a lot of job descriptions and job adverts. You'll see mostly on sales ones, they'll say the same things, but they miss a lot of hidden industry requirements that the sales manager hasn't put on paper, whether they haven't been asked about it, they haven't thought about it, hasn't occurred to them yet, or it's just something that they are unaware that they wanted. They aren't always there, which is why I think tailoring your resume or CV to every role is a big mistake, because in my experience, when I go through a job briefing with a company, the requirements change almost by 70 or 80% each time after intense questioning, because they think differently about the role and we give them different options to the people who could be out there. So the key is to get as many, not points around the role that you're applying for, because then you'd have to tailor it every single time, even if you wanted to. That's a pain in the ass. You don't want to do that. And you don't want to get AI systems to do it either, because companies can't write job adverts. So if they write your CV, it's going to end up looking like hell. What you want to do is use the information from this study and try and pack your resume full of as many of these points as possible, because this is from sales leaders across the world who have told us this information. Now, a lot of people will talk about, oh, the length of a resume, the length of a CV is the most important. No, the most important thing is the content of your CV. Even if you have the worst template in the world, if the content is there, you have got a good chance. If you have it, switch it the other way around. If you've got the best template in the world and you've got none of the content, you've got no chance. The content is the king, no matter what anybody tells you. Okay? So let's focus on the content today. So there's about 28 points here. I'm going to rattle through the first few quite quickly. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to implement them in the CV. Okay. So number 28, the 28th most important. Was it 28th? No, 29th. Okay. So this is the 29th most important point. We're going to go from the least important to the most important as we go on. Okay. So number 29, professional associations or network involvement. So these are the professional associations in your network, in your industry. Because if you're associated with them, people who maybe don't understand the industry that well, or even if they do, will realize, oh, you know what that association is, therefore you must have a decent in-depth knowledge of this industry and you work within it. So whatever professional association it is, stick it in there. 28, any regulatory frameworks and compliance involvement. So this is mainly if you are a salesperson in sort of financial services or heavy compliance roles. What are those regulatory frameworks that you've worked within? Okay. Not applicable for most people, but for some people it's very applicable. 27, your involvement in events and exhibitions. Obviously a big part of being a salesperson is being face-to-face at exhibitions and events. Have you set them up? Have you manned those stands? What has been your involvement in those events? Have you hosted them? Because these are all little elements that people might want to have from their salespeople, and almost nobody put these on their CV at all. So just talk about what your involvement in exhibitions and events are. Okay. Next one, 26. Any marketing responsibilities? Now, obviously, especially in a smaller company, you're going to have more crossover with marketing, and you might have done different marketing responsibilities. And some roles have a percentage of marketing responsibilities in them, 25, 50%, sales and marketing managers are a thing. So if you have marketing knowledge, that could be very valuable. So if you've done, PPC campaigns, or you've put together pitch decks, or you run social media campaigns, stick them in there. Okay. Same thing is for next one, which is number 25. Any operational responsibilities. Obviously, the more senior you get in sales, the more operational responsibilities you might have. But you might have them in a smaller company too. And these could be very valuable for a company. If you're getting involved with the operations team heavily in a role, they want to see what you've done with that team and what tasks you've undertaken in there from an operational perspective. And some people are split between sales and operations, again, like sales and marketing. So get your operational responsibilities in there. Next one is 26. Other responsibilities. Now, other, it's open to interpretation what other is, but I'm talking about things like site surveys, product demonstrations. We're talking about what else would be technical assessments, that type of thing. Things that are linked to your job, which might not necessarily be sales based. You just want to list as many of those as possible. 25, commercial responsibilities. Setting up the sales strategy, bids, tenders, contract negotiation, pricing, all these things. You don't have to go into detail, just list the keywords in there. So list as many commercial responsibilities as you've done. Because again, if you're applying for a more senior role, they're going to want someone who's done more senior commercial elements. And you might have done this. You might be involved in bids and tenders for the NHS or the government, whoever it might be. Is valuable information. 24. If you did, what was the annual revenue of your P&L responsibility? So if you were managing a P&L, what that was worth. So this is very useful for companies who want someone who to manage a P&L. So put it in there. Okay, 24. 24 and 23 are linked together. So I'll put them together. So percentage of new business self-generated. All right. How much of your new business role was self-generated new business? Not from leads being given to you, not being generated for you, but what was the percentage of your role that was new business generated? Was it all 100%? You did it all, or was it 50%? Whatever it is. Because there's different types of new business roles. Some of them are 100% self-generated and some aren't. So if someone can see that you've done 100% of self-generated new business and they're recruiting for a new business role, that is going to work in your favor massively because it's one of the rarest things people have done and are happy doing. So make it clear what percentage of it was self-generated. Likewise, if you're going to a 100% new business role where it's expected that you're doing self-generated new business and you haven't done any self-generated new business, that could be something you don't want to be involved with potentially because it's going to be a very different dynamic and it's a different stress, it's a different pressure on a new business role. The next one after that was the channels used for that new business generation. So how did you do that? Was it LinkedIn? Was it email? Was it through social media campaigns? Was it literally knocking on doors? Was it cold calling? Detail exactly how you did it. Different companies like to do new business in different ways, and they want people. If a company is just focused on purely cold calling, the fact that you've put 100% self-generated new business from cold calling is going to be very valuable. The problem is most people write a CV and they just put new business, and it's such a wide term. Like, make it specific because everyone puts new business, even if only 5% of their role has new business. You're not really doing new business if you've done 5% of your role. You're an account manager. You're a farmer. So make it specifically clear how much new business you've done and what were the channels. 22. Okay. 21 and 22 are also very similar. So this is the percentage of your role that was focused on managing existing accounts and the percentage of your role which is focused on new business. So was it a 50-50 split? Was it a hybrid role? Was it 70-30, 80-20, 90-10, 100% account management, 100% new business? Make that clear because every single role has either one or the other, or it's split in some way. And they want to see if you have done that similar dynamic in previous roles. If all you've done is 100% account management in the past or 95% account management, going into 100% new business could be very difficult, and vice versa maybe as well. Again, the problem is no one puts this on their CV. They just put account management and new business. So it's like, okay, everyone does that, but what is the specifics? Get the specifics and put it as a percentage of new business versus account management. And I'd also add on there, if management's a part of your role, what percentage of your role is management as well? Because if they're looking for a team leader, you might still be expected to manage accounts and do new business. So they want to see if you can get your hands dirty while managing as well. So just make it crystal clear what you've been doing. If you make people guess, they'll assume that you haven't. Okay. So now we're on, I think I got some of my numbers wrong here, but anyway, we're on 18 and 19. And these ones are put together. Team management. Have you managed a team? And the team size and the job titles of the people within that team. There are 1 million people whose title is sales manager who don't manage. And there's 1 million people who are called an account manager who do manage. So job titles, if all you've got is a job title, even if you're head of sales, some head of sales don't manage teams. And some manage teams of 20 or 30. So the job title is not enough for somebody to recognize if you've done management or not. You've got to tell them. Tell them exactly how many, how big it was, and where they were based, because that's important. If you're managing a European team and you're applying for a role that has, managing an international team, it's going to be very valuable. Again, this is not something people put. People just put management or they don't, even if they are managing. So the job titles are important as well, because you might have experience managing a marketing executive as well, or a new business team, or an account management team. They've all got different dynamics. The more specific you can get, the more chance someone who's looking for that type of profile is going to like what they see. So team management, size of the team, and the job titles. Okay, 17 and 16 are also grouped together. This is the geographical area that your portfolio covers. Again, very few people put this. And one of the first things that companies want to know is what area you have covered, whether it's national, international, or a region, whatever it could be, because the role that you're applying for has a region as well. They want to see if you're relevant. So put the area that you covered, and then how many days per week you meet those customers. Not everybody is a traveling salesperson, and a lot of people apply to roles that have a traveling requirement who have never done it before, and it ends up being a nightmare for both parties. So make it clear if you've traveled or not in there. It doesn't mean they're going to discount you from the role, but if you've been traveling 5 days a week and the role you're applying to is a 5-day-a-week traveling role, you're going to be suitable for it. Again, no one puts this. So one of the first things I get asked is, Dave, you need to find someone who travels 3 days a week, 75% of the time, or whatever it is. No one puts it on there. So it's impossible to tell unless you have a conversation with somebody. 15, this is super important. The sales channels you utilize. Distributors, wholesalers. Do you sell directly to the end user? To retailers? Every company has a sales channel. No one puts their sales channels on their CV. Put them on there. That could be the most important thing for a company that you've worked with a distributor or a wholesaler network in the past. But no one's going to assume that. You have to tell them. 15 is any technical sales experience. So what does your technical sales experience look like for the products that you've sold? Obviously, this is more suitable for more technical roles. But even if they're not technical, every product has an element of it. So, just make that clear what that technical element is. Number 13. Now, I thought this would be higher, but it's still very important. The job titles of the people who you've sold into before. This is especially important if you're a younger salesperson. If you've done a role where you're selling into buyers or procurement people, then if you're applying for a role that's done that, you're going to be very valuable. You know those types of people, you know who you're selling to. Likewise, you could be selling to business owners. They're very different from selling to an account manager. So just make it clear if the job title is the people that you sell to, because it's going to be valuable for the reader. 12, the departments that you've collaborated with in your previous roles. So again, a role, let's say you're applying for a role and it collaborates very heavily with a new product development team. Again, no one puts this on the CV. No one knows what teams. People just assume that everybody knows who they work with. Make it clear who you're collaborating with, because the role you could be applying for, that might be super useful. New product development, maybe it's working very heavily with marketing. They want to see that you worked with the marketing team before. Okay. Number 11. I thought this would be up higher as well, but it is super important. Your average deal size, average order value, 10 grand, 20 grand. Selling a £100 product versus a £1 million product is very different dynamic. And if a company is selling £1 million products and you've sold them, even if they're completely different, you understand high ticket offers. Likewise, they might be low value but high volume. It's a very different approach. So show what your average deal size is. Numbers and figures, as you'll tell as we go along here, numbers and figures are super important. Number 10, the sales cycle. Is it a consultative sales cycle? Is it long-term? Is it short-term? Is it like a governmental sales cycle? Each sales cycle is different. The more relevant you are to that company and their sales cycle, the more attractive you're going to be. If you're someone who's done 20 years worth of very short-term sales cycles, and this one is you're applying for a 3 or 4 year sales cycle role, it might not be, it's probably not good for you to apply to that. You want to let the reader know that that's probably not the right fit for you. Likewise, you could have been doing those for years and it's not clear on your CV. This is one of these hidden ones that you don't see that do actually add value to the reader, because they're, oh God, yeah, John has, God, that's a long sales cycle, 3 year sales cycle. That's exactly what we do. Or a year sales cycle, that's what we do. He understands the patience required for it. Even if you've sold a different product or your resume is not relevant, that one piece can be very relevant and they can work with that. But again, no one puts this on there. Number 9. This is so crucial, this one, that nobody puts on their CVs. The industries and the sectors that you sell into. Why is this important? This is important because everybody sells into a sector. Let's say it's healthcare. If you already understand the healthcare sector, even if it's a completely different product to what this company who you're applying for is selling, you understand the dynamic of that customer. It gives you a head start. You don't have to learn the dynamics of that industry. You know it already. That is a huge part of a salesperson's role, and being able to acclimatize to a new role is the industry that they're operating in. Every industry is different. It has its own quirks. List out all the industries that you sell into. Don't just put all sectors. Oh, that was in the microphone there. Don't just put all sectors and all industries. This is not specific. Put education, healthcare, retail, And this is one of the things where people are looking for keywords specifically. Almost every role I'm asked to find someone who sold specifically into this sector, Dave. No one puts it on the CV. I can't see what people sell into. I have to guess. I have to go and research the company. And I'm not going to do that when I've got 500 applicants to every role. And I'm headhunting a whole bunch of them as well. So make it clear for the reader. If you make them guess, they're just going to cast you aside. So the sectors that you sell into are super important. Again, number 8, this equally is important. The products and the services that you have sold is super important. So many people don't include this. It's basic. Don't assume your reader knows who your company is or what you sell. They've got too many applicants to go through to do a background check on you. If you sell paper towels, tell them that you sell paper towels. If you sell doors, tell them that you sell doors. Okay? Just make it clear. So products and sectors are 2 that you have to put on there people are searching for those terms. If they're searching for PPE and you don't have it on there, they can't find you. And they're going to have automated systems that scan for these keywords. If it's not there, you're not going to get flagged as relevant. Number 7, your 5 biggest accounts and their value. Now we're going to start getting into the numbers and the figures. Your job is about numbers and figures at the end of the day. So you want to put as many of them on there as possible. Of course, some of this is confidential. You can't always put it on there. That's fine. Don't put it on there. But put your 5 biggest accounts, who they are and what their value is. Why is this important? Well, if you're an account manager and your account at your last company was Sainsbury's, and the role that you're applying to is managing Sainsbury's, you're going to get an interview. There's a 95% chance you're going to get an interview. Again, people don't put it at the accounts that they've managed. So there's no way of knowing. There's no way of possibly knowing who you've managed and their value. If you've managed a £20 million Sainsbury's account and you're coming up against other people who have managed a $2 million Sainsbury's account, wow, you're going to have a huge leg up of getting that interview. So again, it's one of those keywords that are going to be searched. They're going to be looking for people who have searched Sainsbury's, Tesco, Ocado, whatever it is. Get it on there. So that's the 5 biggest accounts. Number 6, the types of accounts you manage. We're talking key accounts, national accounts, independent accounts, government accounts. Make it clear what type of accounts you've managed. Key accounts, whatever it is. Put it on there. This is important because, you know, if you're applying for a national role, but you've not done a national role before, let's say you're an area salesperson, you might manage a couple of national or key accounts as part of your area sales role. So you might be taking a step up into national, and that company might only be looking for someone who's got a bit of national experience. If you've just got area sales manager as your title and no information about the accounts managed, they're going to assume that you've not done national. So if you've done national accounts, put national accounts, key accounts, whatever, get it on there. Number 5 is linked to that, which is the total number of accounts managed. So you just simply put, I managed 35 accounts. I managed 35 national key and government accounts. We know exactly what type of accounts that you've been managing. Number 4. Oh, this one's super crucial. A short company description of your recent past employers. This is something that almost nobody does. When I get a CV, people expect me to assume I already know who the company is. Now, I know a lot of companies in my sector that I recruit for, but if I'm not a specialist in this sector, let's say I'm a generalist recruiter, or I'm new to this sector, you're making me guess and assume that you're relevant or not, or making me do a bunch of searches to figure out if you're relevant. No, they're not going to do that. A HR person who's reviewing CVs, especially if they're a junior, they're not going to know all the companies in your industry. They're not going to know if you're suitable. So put a company description, how big they are, where they're located, what products they sell, what industries they sell into, and if they're privately owned, PE owned, whatever it might be, because that gives the person an immediate snapshot of the environment that you've been in. So if you've been working for a $10 billion US owned multinational chemical manufacturer, and you're applying for a multinational hygiene or chemical manufacturer, they can see immediately that you're relevant. Likewise, it can be if you work for a small family company and you're applying for another small family company, if they can see that your last employer was a £10 million family business, you understand the dynamic of working in that. Don't put just the company name, because we don't know who the companies are most of the time. Right. And number 2 and number 1. Number 2, your sales figures. Last 5 years of sales figures. get as many of them on there as possible. And that includes the amount of revenue that you generate in your current role. So if you manage those 33 national accounts, how much are they worth? 10 million? 2 million? Because the company that you're applying for, their accounts could be worth 2 or 10 million. And you understand the volume and the metrics required for a role of that nature. So sales figures, as well as your last 5 years targets versus how you achieved against them. That includes your revenue targets, that includes your profit margin, that includes your retention target, whatever it is. How you achieved against your last 5 years sales targets. And then number one, the most important thing by far is your key achievements. I'd say 75% of sales roles don't put these in there. And what is your job about at the end of the day? Your job is to make money for a company to help them grow. Now, if you don't put anything about the growth that you've managed to achieve for your past employers, it's going to make you look like you've done nothing. So put your key achievements. Now, your key achievements could be a revenue achievement. It could be, I grew the portfolio from nothing to 2 million in 2 years from zero. Hell of an achievement. Another achievement could be an award that you won. I was top salesperson of the year in 2024. Huge achievement. Out of, if you put that out of 300 salespeople, massive achievement. I launched a new product to market, and that grew. We took 15% market share within 2 years. Huge achievement. I grew a team of 1 to 10, and 2 of those people went on to become directors or got promotions in my 2 or 3 years. Huge achievement. So just look back at the things that you've been most proud of and put them on there. Things that show growth and change. Because that's what your role's about at the end of the day. And if you've grown something from nothing to 2 million and you're applying for a new business role, that shows that you're a new business sales hunter. Likewise, you could have grown a team from nothing to 10 people in 2 years, and that shows that you're a team leader and you can build teams. There's so many different achievements that you can have and get them on there, because it's the first thing that people look for and barely anyone puts them on there at all. So they're the key points that we came up with our study. Now you're probably thinking, but Dave, I can't put that for every single role because my CV would be 40 pages long. And you're right. Quickly on length, when we tested length, the length does not matter as long as your content is relevant. People can say, oh, I won't read it if it's 2 pages long or a page long. It's rubbish. If I get a 5-page CV and it's hyper relevant to the role I'm recruiting for, I don't care if it's 5 pages. I don't care if it's 10 pages. But if I get a super irrelevant CV and it's 1 page, I'm not going to put them forward. So the content is the king. Don't worry too much about the length. Now, am I saying you need to make it 10 pages long? No. What you want to do is this information that we've spoken about here. You want to focus on that, on as many of those for your last sort of 7 years worth of roles as possible. You're going to get judged on your last 5 to 7 years, and you're definitely going to get judged on your last 1 or 2 roles. So build out the most recent roles with this information. For roles that are older than 7 years, shorten them right down. They're going to be pretty irrelevant. Now, the only things I would put for older roles, let's say you've got a role from 10 years ago, you don't know what to put. This is what you put. The products you've sold, the sectors you sold into, the sales channels that you managed, you sold through, and a team if you managed it. That's all you need to put. That's the only stuff really that is still relevant for people from roles from years ago. Because you could have sold a product 10 years ago. You still understand and retain some of that information that could be useful to a role. Maybe you're going back into that industry now. Even if it's 20 years ago, that knowledge stays with you. So only really the product sold, the industry sold into, team management, and the sales channels you sell through are still relevant from old roles. No one cares about your sales figures from 10 years ago. No one cares about your achievements from 10 years ago. They don't care. And they're not relevant either. So build out your last couple of roles, make them as much as possible to what we've said here, and then shorten those previous roles down, and that will make your CV a lot shorter and also more relevant to the reader. What else can be said in terms of content? If you're looking to move industries, this is one big problem that people face. If you're looking to move sectors, it's very difficult to move sector. If you're looking to move, make sure 100% that the products you've sold and the sectors that you've sold into are on there, the sales channels, the amount of new business that you've done, etc. Most of the things that we've spoken about on here, you might not be relevant in terms of the products that you've sold, but if you've sold into their exact sectors and you've done new business for a new business role into that sector, you've got 75%, 50, 70% of what they're already looking for. That's why this is so crucial to get this on here. You might be not relevant in terms of what you've done, but if you've got 10 other pieces that are relevant and you made it clear, it could put you into the maybe pile. It might even put you into, yeah, let's do it pile. Just like my missus with me in my metal shirt. So, yeah, if you're looking to move sector, here's this information we spoke about today. The other thing is gaps. People ask me about gaps all the time. We tested gaps. The thing with resume gaps, CV gaps, is this is, unfortunately, this is the way the world works. If there is missing information, there is something called negativity bias. All humans have a negativity bias. It's a term that's been well studied. And it basically means that if in the vacuum of missing information, people will assume the worst. And when people are skipping through CVs at a pretty quick rate every day, they will immediately assume the worst. I can promise you that. A lot of people get upset with what I'm about to say. You don't have to do it. This is just from what we found from our study, and also it's what I've found with my own experience. Tell the people about your gap. You'll be surprised that even if it's something that you perceive as negative, it will not land as negative as you feel. People feel much worse about something that is missing. So if you've taken a career break for a year, you've taken a career break. If you had to look after a loved one, even if you felt burnt out, like, I wouldn't put that personally, just put career break, but just put it in there. In the vacuum of information, people assume, there's a lazy bugger, can't be asked to work, we'll avoid them, or maybe, there's a reason why, so no one wants to touch them. They don't look very attractive. Put the information in there. Traveling, whatever. Just put it in there. All the studies we did, it showed that you got a much higher chance of getting through if you say what the gaps are. And people go, it's none of their business. You're right. It isn't any of their business. But it has an effect. And you've got a choice. A more positive effect or a negative effect. I'd put that information in there. Okay. So, a lot of information there. Just remember that the person reading your resume is gone through a ton of them, a ton of CVs or resumes. They are scanning information at best. The more information that you can put on there that is relevant for sales and the sales market, the more chance you'll get at getting through. Even if you don't match the requirements on the job advert, there are hidden requirements, like we've spoken about here, like new business, for example, percentage of new business, or we would need a hunter versus a farmer, or whatever it might be. If you put that on there, you've got a much better chance because there is a lot of hidden requirements, basically. Okay. For people who are interested, I'll put it in the description of this podcast. We put this study into a free guide called the Sales Resume Roadmap. It's got all of this in there, details everything, and you can start putting your own sales CV resume together. It's free. And it will help you go through everything that we've spoken about today. So in the next part of this, we're going to talk about the structure, the template. just quickly on that is the template pales in comparison to its effectiveness to the content. The content is the most important thing by far. The template is going to only add a couple of percentage points of an improvement if you get it right, although a bad one can knock it down considerably, and we're going to talk about that in the next one. But focus on the content, that's the most important thing. Anyway, to anyone who's been listening, thank you. Bit of a ramble. I'm trying to get used to this. I'll try and make them shorter in the future. But thank you for listening to the You've Got Sales podcast, and we'll speak soon.